Well, Happy New Year. I'm Greg Weeks, Senior Pastor here. I'm delighted to welcome not just members, but also guests who might be with us for the first time here and in the wonders of Facebook land and live streaming. It is a joy to start the new year off with such excitement and to see a choir that there are very few empty chairs. So we're ready for your next concert. When is that, Kevin? Tonight? Oh, Thursday. Okay. Now, seriously, from the many times they've done the work from Holiday Brass on to about 20 services throughout December and Christmas Eve, wow. So it's exciting for that. It's exciting to have our kids back for the playground and all the adults who work there and the volunteers. Thank you for that. I'm excited about bringing a new sermon series to you all. It is a series that's going to focus on just the unique creation you are. Did you know that in about 15 billion years since the fuse was lit on the Big Bang and everything exploded, no one has ever been created just like you? I think that's amazing when you start to think about that. The unique combination of talents and gifts and flaws and weaknesses, the whole ball of wax. There's no one like you and around you. Never. That's a miracle. So that's what I'm focusing on today and for the next few Sundays as we celebrate that and also work on how God may be leading us in unique ways, using our gifts on into the future. And today we're going to have more or less the foundation story that's going to set all of this up. It is one of the teaching stories of Jesus where we look at two very unique characters. And in honor of the gospel, I would invite you to please stand.
Jesus told this parable to certain people who had convinced themselves that they were righteous and who looked on everyone else with disgust. Two people went up to the temple to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed about himself with these words, "God, I thank you. I am not like everyone else, crooks, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give a tenth of everything I receive." But the tax collector stood at a distance. He wouldn't even lift his eyes to look toward heaven. Rather, he struck his chest and he said, "God, show mercy to me, a sinner." I tell you, this person went down to his home justified rather than the Pharisee. All who lift themselves up will be brought low, and those who make themselves low will be lifted up. The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. You may be seated.
And did you notice that Jesus labeled people? There were two labels, Pharisee, tax collector. If you get nothing more out of this sermon than what I'm about to say, please remember this, and that will be sufficient. People are not labels. People have stories. People are not labels. People have stories. Just listen to the story of the Pharisee.
I am a Pharisee. I'm a member of a Jewish club that focuses on knowing and keeping the 613 laws of God found in the Hebrew Scriptures. Growing up, and my siblings were not exactly this way, but growing up, I always obeyed. I always worked hard. I always followed the rules. I found that living my life according to the rules brought much affirmation to me over the years. My father would say, "You are such a good and respectful son. And that meant a lot to me. And others, too, continually affirm my life choices by saying things like, "You are such a righteous man. You are so generous, giving 10% of your earnings to God. You know all of the laws of God, and you follow all of them. You make your mother and father very proud." These kind words have always been a source of pride and comfort to me because they affirm that I am living my life according to what God requires of us. For the life of me, I cannot understand why others do not do the same. I have no time or patience for those who blatantly choose not to obey. None.
I'm a tax collector. I'm not proud of it. Nobody grows up thinking they're going to be a tax collector. But I was hungry, desperate, and I needed money. So when the Romans offered me a position to extort taxes from my fellow Jews, yeah, I took it. Someone was going to do it anyway, so it might as well be me, so I could put bread on the table. Look, my father had a very close relationship with the fruit of the vine, if you know what I mean. That wine meant more to him than this family, that's for sure. I spent all my time trying to avoid being beaten or watch my mother being beaten. So much rage pent deep down inside of me. It poured out at school. I got into fights. I was not a good student. I really didn't care what people thought because I couldn't afford to. Caring is a luxury. It wasn't something I could understand or even trust. How could I? I was all on my own. So, I've always had a pragmatic approach to life. If something helps me to get by, I'll do it. And tax collecting fit nicely into that category. But over time, my conscience got the better of me. I realized I was simply stealing from my friends and skimming a little bit off the top for myself as well. I knew it was wrong. I knew I was disobeying God. The guilt I felt grew heavier and heavier until one day I realized the hate on my neighbors' faces when they looked at me reflected exactly how I felt about myself on the inside. Everything changed at that moment. I changed, and I wanted my life to change as well. I decided to go to the temple and pray for forgiveness.
So one simple question I ask you. If the Pharisee had heard the tax collector's story, would Jesus' parable have ended as it did? If he had known the background of that man, would he have been so judgmental, harsh, self-righteous? Who knows? But I have a hunch that hearing the story would have opened up his eyes as well as his heart. And the thing is, every one of us has a unique story. It's like we are dealt a hand of cards, and we all have these unique cards in front of us. Sometimes we think, well, I want my hand to be better than that other person's hand. But that's not the type of game life is. Life means that we are dealt cards, you're dealt cards, I'm dealt cards that are unique to us. And it's not about winning or losing. It is truly about playing the game so that we can come to a realization of who we are, who we're called to be, and what we need to be doing with our lives. 5 cards I'm going to talk to you about today. And this is not my idea. This came from Pastor Rick Warren in an interview with all people with Oprah several years ago. And Pastor Warren said, each of us is dealt 5 cards. only one of which is under our control. And that's very important to note. We only control one of these 5 cards. The other 4, life deals to us. I have a note insert for you on the back of the bulletin format of the worship. There is a place for you to write down these 5 cards and refer to it every so often, just as a reminder of really who you are and who your neighbor is. And I'll give you a little head start. Every word starts with the letter C. So if you just want to save some time, put C, 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 C. C? And the first C, the first card that life deals you, is the most obvious. It is the card of chemistry. It's who we are born as. We have nothing to do with that because it is a result of millions of years of evolutionary genius to get your genes just right so that you will have a certain color hair or no hair. That you will have certain color eyes, certain color skin, certain temperaments, because your personality is dealt you in life to a large degree. You can't choose to be an extrovert if you're happiest being in a corner of an office working the numbers out. You just can't. It's in your genes. My sister, Jen, hello Jen, is a motivational speaker. I'm a preacher. We both use our mouths. Why? We didn't determine this. It's just something that we sort of enjoy. It comes naturally to us. And for many people, we know public speaking is death on a stick. And I understand that. But it is also death on a stick if you put someone who likes speaking in a closet to crunch numbers. We're given those tendencies. And some people say we're even given the tendency to be a liberal or a conservative, leaning towards certain values one way or the other. And you can't do a thing about it. Chemistry. How about the second card we're dealt? Connections. Who are your parents? Who are your grandparents? Who are your siblings? Who are your teachers? Who taught your teachers? Who raised your parents? It's all part of how you were connected, not just now, but generation after generation. And some people say, some studies say, that your self-esteem is directly connected to what important people in your life think about you. Who are, or who were, those important people? Second card you were dealt. Third card you were dealt. Circumstances. Where were you raised? If you were raised on the red clay hills of Georgia, your outlook, at least in the beginning, is going to be quite a bit different than if you were born in a row house on Haight-Ashbury Street in San Francisco. No doubt about it. That's the way it will begin. And you can't do anything about it. What are your experiences? Who are your friends? Where did you go to school? Circumstances you cannot change. Third card. Fourth card, consciousness. This is what we tell ourselves to be true. And you know what? Just because we think it's true does not mean it's true. Our minds, what we're using right now, our top of our consciousness, makes sense. We're not controlled by that. We're controlled by this deeper side called our subconscious that grasps beliefs and gives us security and sometimes fools us into thinking that this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. Whether that has any validity is another matter, and odds are it doesn't, because we are all skewed and we all see only a small, through a small portion of the lens of life. But that's our consciousness. 4 cards that you can't do anything about. But the fifth card is the wild card, the fifth card of choices. We are free to be able to make a choice. We are not a predestination Presbyterian. We are not a Calvinist, thinking that everything is preordained. Did you hear about the Calvinist who fell down the stairs, got up and said, "Oh, I'm glad that's over with"? That has nothing to do with the sermon, but I thought it was a funny little joke. We have choice. We have freedom. And we can choose to take an objective look at ourselves. Maybe to assume that maybe our parents weren't exactly right all the time. Or maybe the thing that I think is true might be a prejudice. We have the choice to be honest, and we have the choice to have humility that we can learn from someone else. And if we have that honesty and humility and choose to do that intentionally, then the fruits of the Spirit come out: joy, hope, and more than anything else, the ability to love. Because you'll understand that you are flawed, but beautiful. And the person next to you isn't all good or bad, but is a mix just like you. And you can have that empathy, and you can connect as human to human, child of God to child of God. So remember that. Remember the choice that's yours. And remember to be able to look at the other person, know that person is here only because they have their own story, and you have the grace to say, it's a beautiful story. As a matter of fact, let's practice that now. I want you to really feel that not just you are graced and you are a beautiful child of God, but I want you to really know that the person around you, on the left, on the right, on the front, and the back, that person is a beautiful child of God as well. So in a moment, I want you simply to turn to those people, and I want you to say, you are a beautiful child of God. I want the choir to turn to each other and to be able to say that. I want the Maryville wrestling team, nationally ranked Maryville wrestling team. It's not real manly, but you can do it. Turn to each other and say, you are a child of God. I want you all to do that to each other right now. You are a beautiful child of God. You are a beautiful child of God. You too, Kevin. You are a beautiful child of God. Now that we have that practice, you know what I want you to do? When you go out to lunch, when you go to McDonald's or Sam's Steakhouse or wherever, Bandanas, Ruth's Chris, I don't care, wherever you go up to a stranger and you say, you are a beautiful child of God. And you know what that person will do? Try it at home. Go out. They'll dial 911. So maybe you don't want to really do that literally, but what you can do is you just look at another person, someone you don't know, and you pray for them. You give them a prayer, and you just imagine their story. Why are they serving you the latte? Why are they checking you out at Schnucks? Why are they working next to you in the office? Why are they teaching you? Why are you learning with your classmate? Just imagine their story. And you just pray. And on your insert on the back, I've included a prayer that you might just want to use as a model. And to close this sermon, I would invite you to pray it with me. Would you please turn to it and pray with me? Creator God, thank you for making this special, unique, beautiful person. Bless them this very day in some gracious way. Open my eyes to see how precious they are. Help me learn from them so I may better play the cards you've given me. May all this be to your glory, Lord. Amen.